Hello, Meoni here. Welcome back to another showcase video, this time looking at all of the tools added in patch 7.41. This adds 110 more achievement points to our cosmic exploration tools. So if you want to get those, that's how many you get. There are, of course, 11 tools to go with the 11 Disciple of Land and Hand classes. They are 765 item level tools, and they vary in quality, honestly, but I will also have the buffs and benefits on screen next to each weapon for you to pause and look. But I think the grind this time was actually worth it. I didn't look at the previous stage, the small upgrade visually. I didn't think it was worth it, but now we actually have a really nice upgrade, in my opinion, visually, so I thought we'd do this video. It took me not that long to get these. The crafters, as usual, are always the easiest part. The fisher taking the longest of the gatherers, and the gatherers obviously taking a little bit longer because you have to run around a lot, whereas with crafters you can just sit there and hit a macro if you like, and that's pretty much it. Rinse and repeat until you've finished it off. They vary in quality. They are basically the same models that we had before, but with the glow. Some things have changed, I believe, however, on the dye palettes, so I thought it would be a good idea to showcase these, but also showcase the entire dye palette. So without further ado, let's go through all of the dyes. This took me around 10 hours to actually set up all of the dyes and record all of the clips. So of course, if you do like this video, I don't usually do the whole call to action crap on YouTube, but it probably would help me if you did. But thank you in advance anyway. The weapons, in my opinion, are quite nice. The pickaxe is definitely one of my favorites that has been added this time. The same problem with the dye ability has occurred for the majority of these. There is some slight differences as far as I can tell from the last video we did, with the secondary colors sometimes taking the primary palette for some reason instead of a primary palette. But yeah, they're not too bad. But of course, you're going to have to, if you are going to change the color of these, match to that really crazy looking visual effect, which is, just as a reminder, this is not the last stage. There is another planet to come, planet/moon, in cosmic exploration. So this is pretty good looking for a, I guess, second to last stage. There are, of course, 3 mini stages of you leveling up until you get the hyper stage, until you get the hyper pickaxe, etc. But they're relatively easy, quite honestly. And it obviously introduces the rank 6 gathering stuff, or rank 6 crafts, which haven't really increased in difficulty. If anything, they have just procedurally gotten kind of the same or easier across the board. There are, of course, lots of rewards from doing the EX Plus missions, but there is not really any reason to go out of your way distinctly to do that unless you don't want to spend gil on the market board to get some of the mounts. But as far as I know, 90% of all of the rewards this time around from Cosmic on Oisies are market tradable. So I don't know, think of that what you will. Personally, I think there should be more things that you can earn, similar to how we have the black mobile suit mount, vacuum suit mount, which is only for 500k points. I think there should be more achievement rewards or more things to take from this that you can't just simply buy from a market board. Even though that is convenient for other people, I think there needs to be more incentives to do this content, but at the same time I believe the content itself needs to be enriched slightly. After spending considerable time on stream actually doing these, a lot of the discussion with people that come into the stream always results to, is it just leaf quests again? And it's very hard not to just admit that it is a glorified leaf quest system. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's something that works, but a lot of people, including myself, did hope for something more with Cosmic, where, you know, 3 planets/moons into this with another one on the horizon. I don't see any significant changes that could be possibly made for this. So at the end of the day, we're looking forward to whatever they do in the 8.x series for the next expansion. Perhaps they will learn from Cosmic, perhaps they will mix in some of the ideas that they learned from the Ishgard restoration. That's something that a lot of people compare this to. A lot of my close friends have not returned to this content at all for Dawntrail, that were heavily invested into the Ishgard restoration, whether that be for titles such as, you know, Saint of the Firmament, or Beta River Firmament, those sorts of titles, or just the fact that they had a little bit of a competition, whereas the Stellar Contributor doesn't really give any of that. It's just a flashy buff that lasts for, 14 days, which is not particularly great, in my opinion, and obviously hasn't been enough to incentivize. Another thing that was a slight disappointment with this content, or I should say a major disappointment, really, was the lack of lore so far. Again, a lot of the lore, the side quest stuff, does come from side quests, right? Once you've completed each of the moons / planets, such as Sinus Adorum or Faena, they had a bit of quest line, a little bit of filler information. This, though, with Oisies was the first time we were sort of kind of almost promised through the translation, although it was probably bad translation from the live letter, the enhanced sort of storytelling of a failed nation, basically a fallen race of people that lived on the Oisies planet and fell to the calamity, like a gravitational calamity, as you can see when you walk around there, which is pretty epic on paper. But the artifact system was something that I thought was going to be much more than it actually became. We did a video on this before and I complained pretty much that it's just glorified treasure maps, only there's no monsters to fight. You basically do your EX or A rank missions. You get enough of these drone bits, you exchange the drone bits for a box, which is effectively a treasure map. You right click that, you open it, it shows an X on the map, you go there, you open a box, and then you get one of 3 grades of quality sort of disc. You get silver, bronze, and of course gold discs, and then you appraise those for loot. So it is effectively a cross between treasure maps and that of an appraisal system you might see in a deep dungeon or a field instance, that kind of thing. That's not to say that I'm being, a negative Nancy about that per se. It's just I was kind of hoping there was going to be a little bit more to it. It's always nice to have extra rewards and things for your time spent on an activity, but the activities themselves, I feel, are falling short of what people's expectations might have been, and for the artifact system to not really give me that lore injection that I personally wanted was a little bit of a disappointment. Personally, I would be super happy if we had something like the field note system, but for crafters and gatherers when we're on one of these alien worlds that has been inhabited in the past, right? That would help kind of stitch the pieces together. It would give me a better reason to go there. Give me a better reason to engage with it and really understand it, rather than waiting until the end of it where all of the side quests open up and hoping that there's some lore about this fallen civilization, which so far has been very, very shallow. But that's just my personal opinion as we talk over this footage of the dies. I thought that was, worth sharing my opinion. I don't know what you think about cosmic exploration as a whole. Are you disappointed by it? What would you want to see changed? Obviously, this is something that I'm hoping makes its way into the next expansion as recycled into another piece of content. I think crafter and gatherer content as a whole is something that they need to work on, and it definitely is deserved, right? There's a lot of people that spend a lot of time doing crafting and gathering, and it is nice to have an entire piece of content suited to that. I just feel like there should be more social interactions, there should be more involvement, other than just a world level up fate, which really isn't that spectacular. Yeah, things definitely fell short in my opinion. This is starting to sound a little bit more like a rant than I wanted it to sound, but it's my actual opinions on this. It's good content for the most part, but it could have been so much more, and I hope it is a learning stage for what's to come in the future. The weapon design, or I should say tool design, it's hard to look at this saw without thinking it's a weapon because it looks so good, I think is exceptional. They've definitely blown the lid off of my expectations for what could be done for crafters and gatherers for not even the final stage. I think they look really cool, and it does excite me to see what the final stage will look like. It is exciting to know that it could be anything, and obviously the gravitational wave sort of thing, that like waveform, is to do with Oisies having that gravitational calamity, so it does fill my head with possibilities of what we could see in the future. Maybe something like a supernova sort of situation in the future, or maybe like a binary star system in sky, and maybe it's like overheating or something like a fiery tool. That would be cool, similar to how they have the primal minimal weapons of old, right? For combat roles, it would be nice to have a whole set of themed around, you know, different calamities and different primal aspects, different elemental aspects for tools. I think that would be really cool. But yeah, these are really nice. Some of the smaller weapons are obviously suffering a little bit because, you know, the dyes aren't going to be as reflective. And of course, the mesh gravitational effect is so prominent on the top of these, on the tip of many of the weapons. Most of them hide a lot of the, you know, the potential dye reflection. So it's kind of difficult to see what is even dyeing on some of these. But I did try to include as much as I physically could. There is one tool coming up that I just kind of gave up halfway through in terms of dyeability as to not waste dyes, because, you know, all of this costs absolute a fortune in terms of currency to actually get the amount of dyes for this sort of video, but that's fine. I enjoy doing it. It's kind of scratches my OCD when I do these videos. But yeah, some of the dye reflections could be better, let's say. It would be really nice to be able to dye the glow effects, and this applies to things like relic weapons as well. I think that's always something that's kind of been missed off the table. There are a few exceptions where something with a glow, like the bit that glows, can change the color of a glow with relic weapons in the past. We're talking like the Gordian samurai blade, for example, not a relic, but it might as well be. It's absolutely gorgeous. There's a few examples in the game where that's possible, and I think it would be nice to see that in relic weapons, where we could change these fantastical glows into different colors to match our own outfits or our own aesthetic. But yeah, the world of, you know, suiting glamour to tools is relatively new in comparison. There's then the Blacksmith tool, which I always think looks like someone's got a power drill and then just put a hammer on the top. I always wonder what happens if you click that switch, that big red switch. Does it have like a pneumatic sort of drill function where it just hammers repeatedly? I want to press it. My character doesn't, and I wish that she would. Looks pretty good though. Again, it suffers a little bit here because the glow isn't affecting the whole tool. It does look a little bit strange when you change the color of it, so maybe darker colors, simple colors are probably for the best, which is why I think they've gone for the base white and black sort of silver palette on the tools. But at least they are double dyeable, but I'm not 100% sure that all of them really receive the best possible outcome from that because of how the effect is being applied. It is a really cool effect though, like the gravitational little rocks floating around as well. You could stare at those for hours, and thankfully you do need to stare at them for hours if you want to go for the point achievements. So that's a good thing. They're not too bad. At the moment, though, do I prefer the like the splendorous ones? Yes, I do. I do still prefer the splendorous weapons, but I said on stream as well, it's almost impossible and unfair for me to compare a finished stage relic tool to one that is not finished. So again, you know, it's pretty darn good for a second to last stage of a tool relic. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we get something amazing that also dies well on the last stage. This is the one that I was kind of dreading. I started doing the dyes. I spent the guild to get some more dyes because I was running out for my alchemist. And quite honestly, I didn't need to bother. I only went one direction with some of the dyes. It's a bit of a disgrace, really. You can't really see what's going on. And even on the previous stage, it was a bit of a mess. I was hoping they would have fixed the dyeability of this, because it doesn't really matter what color you throw at this. It just makes it so incredibly dull. It's not just darkening the color, it's making it very dull. And of course, the one thing I do like about it is that the spell effect, like the effect, is across the entire alembic, which is really nice. But I think the dyes are unnecessary, quite honestly, which is why I think we probably need to look at dyeability of the actual special effects in the future, if that's possible. Yeah, I gave up at this point, and I even put in, as I was editing it, dyes like trash. Yeah, I'm not spending any more dyes. Leatherworker, you know, the pizza cutter in the sky, looking great, honestly. I do like this pizza cutter. It kind of looks a little bit impractical, like most of these, like, if you were to cut leather, does the little rocks get stuck on it? Like, how powerful is the gravitational pull of this pizza cutter or any of the tools? I have no idea. Honestly, not terrible dyes. Most of the dye there, like as you can see, this the primary palette is what you hold, and then the secondary palette is on the outside of a weapon. The disc isn't changing color that much, if at all, just very slight changes. Yeah, it's just a very, very powerful graphic, isn't it? But it's a cool one nonetheless. But at least you get to see some dye reflections, and you could potentially match this to armor if you were to use this. At the end of the day, this is going to turn into glamour, because the relevance of a tool lasts, you know, for as long as a patch or two before there's a new crafted one, or be that a new relic tool like there will be at the end of this expansion. But it's nice whilst it lasts, and it's cool to have options like we do for combat roles. I will say that the combat relics are definitely eating good this time around. I think that the cosmic exploration stuff was better last time, but the combat ones from the Occult Crescent this time are absolutely exceptional. I am working on finishing off the other half of weapons. I'm nearly about halfway through the relic weapon stage that was added. I've been doing a lot of hunt spam and other things to get tomes, but it's tomes at the end of the day. It's not my favorite thing to do. So when that video comes out, hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later. Good old pan. I do like a good pan. That looks lovely. The dyes, again, sort of reflected nicely, depending if you can match something with the purple. It looks good, obviously, in purple, but it is a pan at the end of the day with that bright turquoise section on the end, that kind of handle there on the end. I guess hook, where you would hook it onto or something. I don't know what that is. Yeah, it's interesting. I like this space age pan. I think that's really cool. It's one of the better designed tools, to be honest with you. The Alembic is half decent, I guess. A lot of people are happy about the first, like the primary stages, because it just looks like a bottle. Now it kind of looks a little bit like a weird musical instrument or something, but at least the pan still looks like a pan. But I'm curious as to what will happen to the pan in the future. It's one of those things, you know, I like the big tools. I'm not going to lie. The best ones are obviously the big ones that you can see in your hand, such as saws and things like that. The saw is probably the best saw in the game. I love it so far. Absolutely love it. I do actually think the saw from this is better than the Splendorous one visually. But yeah, the stats regarding like the buffs and stuff, it could be more, quite honestly. The benefits to point gain would be nice. It's just benefits to Cosmo credits and Oisis credits, which is okay, but it would be nice to have a buff to point gain, especially for people going for those achievements, to just have that final little bit of an incentive. And then finally we have the goldsmithing hammer, which isn't too bad. It's kind of looks a bit plasticky, like the it's less of a metallic sort of texture that they're using on the handle and the shaft. But yeah, it's okay. The small hammers are always too finicky, really, but it does look interesting. It's like they've sort of crammed the resolution down, like they've downscaled it, the texture, to fit on the top of the goldsmith hammer, and it actually looks a lot nicer than some of the others where it's stretched. But yeah, it's going to be your mileage will vary. Overall, I think these tools aren't bad. They're exceptional for being a second to last stage. You could easily, you know, be forgiven for trying to compare these as a final stage, which is quite surprising. A lot of people, including myself, were like, whoa, we have a really cool glow effect this time. I do think that in retrospective, it would have been nice to have a Faena glow. It would have been nice to have something related to each of the planets. I think Faena's definitely was quite disappointing, especially compared to the moon, like Sinus Adorum. I think this is cool, and I hope they continue with this precedent and have the next world and its identity established in there, or maybe cosmic exploration as an identity established. A lot is riding on the last stage, quite honestly. I want them to do a bit of a lore dump. I want them to have some kind of revelation from this entire storyline. That would be nice, but maybe I'm dreaming. Maybe it'll just be some glowy weapons and a couple of side quests, like it will be this time. Definitely the saw is my favorite out of the lot, though. It looks absolutely exceptional. I'm a massive fan of big saws. So yeah, it could die better though. The blade kind of gets lost a bit in the dye palette, but yeah, it is what it is. We've got that amazing gravitational effect, and then the pickaxe. Definitely love that pickaxe. If the next stage is poo-poo, then I'll likely be using this as glamour. Anyway, let me know which ones you've got, if you've got all of them, and which is your favorite. Thank you so much for watching. This took a while to do, so thank you for your patience. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.